Hello and welcome to the 2019... I think this needs to be more fancy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2019 MacBook Awards. And now, introducing your host, Mr. Luke Miani.
Thank you all so much for coming and welcome to the 2019 MacBook of the Decade Awards. Today we're here to celebrate the best and the worst MacBooks of the past 10 years. That's right, while the 2010s might be ending, they leave behind a wide palette of MacBooks, both good and bad. So let's run through them. The 2019 MacBook Awards are made possible by Smart News, a free news aggregating app that uses advanced machine learning to deliver stories from hundreds of trusted publishers. Smart News makes it easy to discover new topics and media sites. It emphasizes content discovery, so rather than giving you stories that confirm existing beliefs, it gives you diverse viewpoints and legitimate publications from a variety of political and content spectrums. Smart News uses your reading habits to determine what content is most interesting to you. So the more you read, the more personalized Smart News becomes. Content is arranged into tabs that sort by genre. They even have a tech channel that has content specifically relating to the tech community. I've been using Smart News for a couple of days now, and it does a really fantastic job at delivering stories that I'm interested in, but also at getting me to branch out and finding new things that I might not have heard about before. It's really great and it's totally free, so head over to the link in the description below to check out Smart News, and a big thanks to them for making these awards possible. Let's get these guys out of here. Let's start the awards by going through the worst MacBooks of the past decade. Starting this list off with number 5, we have the 2017 Function Keys MacBook Pro. This was the entry-level model that was designed to undercut the more expensive Touch Bar configurations in 2016 and 17. And while a lot of people certainly appreciated a MacBook Pro that didn't have the Touch Bar, pretty much everything else about it sucked. To start, it stuck around for way too long. It was introduced in 2017 and it only got replaced in July by this. And that entire time it was ridiculously underpowered. A dual-core i5, 8 gigs of RAM, and 128 gigabyte SSD. Even when it was brand new, those specs were pretty terrible. Even worse than the underpowered performance was its terrible reliability problems. See, it had the 2017 revision of the Butterfly keyboard, which, while it wasn't quite as bad as the original, failed all the time. And in addition to that, it also had the FlexGate issue, so people's displays and their keyboards were simultaneously broken. Next up, coming in at number 4, is the 2018 MacBook Pro with the Core i9. Don't get me wrong, the 2018 MacBook Pro was a significant upgrade. It was the first core count increase to the 15-inch MacBook Pro since 2011. It also brought improvements to the Butterfly keyboard as well as DDR4 RAM, and for the first time, the ability to equip 32 gigs of RAM on a MacBook. However, the other thing that it brought was thermal throttling. The MacBook Pro of this generation wasn't particularly great when it came to thermals anyway, and cramming a 6-core 2.9 GHz Core i9 in it didn't help things at all. Pretty much immediately, people started noticing that their 2018 MacBook Pros were basically a flat-top grill. They were burning people's laps, you could fry an egg on them, and they were throttling like absolute crazy. Apple was able to get this kind of under control with some software updates that tweaked the fan curve and undervolted the CPU, but the damage was already done, and there really isn't a lot you can do to save a chassis that just wasn't built for a 6-core or 8-core i9. Coming in at number 3 is the 2016 15-inch MacBook Pro. This was a new generation for Apple, but it also brought a lot of problems. Compared to the original Retina MacBook Pro, we gave up, well, literally all of the ports in favor of Thunderbolt 3. We also gave up the ability to upgrade the SSD in favor of soldered-on SSDs, which we are still stuck with. And we also picked up the Butterfly keyboard, which was terrible. The 2016 MacBook Pro, one of which I used to own, was atrociously unreliable, and it also had pretty bad cooling. Next up, coming in at number 2, is the 2015 Retina MacBook. This was a very important computer. It actually set the design language that MacBooks have been using ever since. But it also introduced a significantly less beneficial aspect, and that is the butterfly keyboard.
Curse you, butterfly!
Honestly, the butterfly keyboard ruined a lot of perfectly good MacBooks, and for that you can thank the original Retina 12-inch MacBook. In order to achieve this super thin, fanless design, Apple had to shave a couple of millimeters off the keyboard, which led to the very thin, very uncomfortable to type on butterfly keyboard. And honestly, the rest is history. Let's just move on. To number 1, the 15-inch Unibody MacBook Pro from 2011. Now I know what you're thinking. The Unibodies are good. They've got lots of ports, they've got lots of upgradability. These things are nice. But the 2011 15-inch was not. See, about 2 years after the 2011 MacBook Pro came out, conveniently right when people's warranties were running out, people started noticing weird issues. The screen was freaking out. All of a sudden their computer wasn't running properly and it was displaying weird artifacts. Well, as it turned out, this was Apple's worst case yet of severe, crippling graphics card failure. The AMD 6000 series graphics, which were introduced in the 2011 MacBook Pro and then made their way to the Mac Mini and even the iMacs, were death traps. They started failing left and right, and by far and away the hardest hit were the 15-inch MacBook Pros. Apple launched a replacement program to address this issue, where they would replace the logic board in your computer for free, up to 4 years after the device was made. But the problem was, they were replacing these faulty logic boards with logic boards that also had the faulty AMD graphics, so it would just happen again and again and again until they ran out of the program, and then you were stuck with a dead laptop. There's no cost-effective way to fix this problem, and these computers are all going to fail eventually. And that's why the 2011 15-inch MacBook Pro comes in at number 1 of the worst MacBook of the decade. So now that we've run through the worst MacBooks of this decade, let's talk about the best. Coming in at number 5 is the 2015 13-inch Retina MacBook Pro. This is probably one of the most popular MacBook Pros in the entire world. These things are everywhere. And for good reason. The 2015 13-inch was the last of the original generation Retina MacBook Pro, and it has a lot going for it. It's got the famously fantastic scissor switch keyboard, it's got plenty of ports, it even has Apple's Force Touch trackpad, which has been very well received, and it has a glorious Retina display. So it's no wonder that this is a fantastic and very popular MacBook Pro, and it actually holds a special place in my heart because my 2015 13-inch Retina MacBook Pro was the computer that I used to start this YouTube channel back in 2015. Coming in at number 4 is the mid-2012 13-inch MacBook Pro, the Unibody one, not the Retina one. This was the last 13-inch Unibody MacBook Pro, and it was also the best. These guys are probably almost as ubiquitous as the 2015, although now they are starting to get a little bit older. Fun fact, this computer was actually sold brand new from Apple for 4 years. It was introduced in mid-2012, and it didn't get discontinued until 2016. These things are famed for their reliability. They will keep going forever and ever, and they're incredibly user serviceable. Everything from the display, keyboard, trackpad, and battery, all the way down to the RAM and storage are upgradable on these machines, which means there's almost endless customization that you can do to them. You can even pull out the DVD drive and put in a second SSD and have RAID 0 SSDs for really crazy read-write speeds. It's no wonder that these things are a staple of coffee shops across the world even 7 years after they were announced. Coming in at number 3 in a similar vein is the 15-inch mid-2012 Unibody MacBook Pro. This guy offers a lot of the same benefits of user serviceability and upgradability as the 13-inch, but has more beefy quad-core processors and dedicated graphics. Even 7 years later, these guys are still great used computers, and you can put 16 gigs of RAM, RAID 0 SSDs, and have a really fantastic and very high capacity machine. You can even change out the 1440 by 900 display for a higher resolution matte finish display that honestly still looks very good to this day. These 2012s are beloved by professionals, and many still use them to this day, even 7 years on. Coming in at number 2 is a late entry, the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro. This is the best value that Apple has offered in years. The base model finally comes with a 0.5 terabyte of storage. We've got 6 and 8 core processors, finally adequate cooling, fantastic graphics that even rival iMacs, brand new iMacs. It's hard to believe. And of course, it's the first computer to ditch the butterfly keyboard since 2015 and finally go back to something that works, the scissor switch. The keyboard is fantastic, and for the first time since the 17-inch was discontinued in 2012, we have a larger display than 15 inches on a MacBook. Now sure, there are some downsides to this MacBook Pro. We're still limited to 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, and there's no upgradability. The RAM and the SSD are soldered on there. But apart from that, everything about this MacBook Pro is better, and it didn't carry a price increase with it. You gotta remember that when the 2012 MacBook Pro with Retina display came out, it had a price increase of $400 over the Unibody models. And they had the same specs too. It's crazy. And now, it's finally time to reveal the best MacBook of the decade. And it is the mid-2015 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro. This was the last of the original Retina MacBook Pros before the Touch Bar generation came in and arguably ruined things, at least for a couple of years. The 2015 is overall fantastic. It has a reliable scissor switch keyboard, all the ports you would need including HDMI, USB-A, and an SD card slot. Please, I just want the SD card slot back. It's got a crisp and bright Retina display, fast SSDs that could be upgraded after the fact. I've got a 1 terabyte drive in this one. It only costs $100. They also come with Haswell quad-core i7s that hold up very well to this day, and they come with very capable Radeon M370X graphics with 2 gigs of VRAM on the higher end models. These 2015s are still popular to this day amongst pros. They have all the ports they need, they've got the great keyboard, decent cooling, and plenty of horsepower to keep up with pro tasks. These things are great for web design, music production, content creation, video editing, photo editing, a whole host of tasks. These things are great. And as an added bonus, you can get them with the dual graphics for easily under $1,000 these days, which is a really great deal. And that's why the mid-2015 15-inch dual graphics MacBook Pro is the best MacBook of this decade. So, thank you all so much for tuning in to the 2019 MacBook of the Decade Awards. The best and worst MacBooks have been crowned, and I'm interested to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Obviously, I couldn't go through every single MacBook here. There are other good ones and bad ones, but I wanted to just stick to the top 5 and the bottom 5. So as usual, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Please consider following me on Twitter, @LukeMiani, and as usual, don't forget to join my subreddit. And with that, I'll see you guys next year.